It'll all be incidental. Arm chop, mark, take your pick. Georgiades, he will have the last say scoreboard-wise, but the North fans will have the last say overall. Where were you the day, North fans, that you turned the corner? It wasn't just a win, it was a domination. And a lens into the future. 17-11, 113 to 9-13, 67.
Alrighty, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name is Dave, also known as the man who makes the worst predictions ever on our squad shows because I predicted an 8-goal win and boy, was I wrong. I am but a clueless and humble nothing on a podcast that believes in Port Adelaide with all my heart and will be repeatedly heartbroken by them. And that probably won't change. It is March. We have played one whole game of football and I fucking hate footy already. Yes, your Port Adelaide Football Club wilted under the lid at Marvel. Our lids are firmly in place. 17-11, 113 to 9-13, 67 a scoreline, a 46-point loss. It is St. Paddy's Day today, the 17th of March, of course, St. Paddy's Day. I need a beer, and being St. Paddy's Day and being that I have Irish blood running through my veins, I have a pint of Guinness here, and before I throw to Jamie, I'm going to chug a pint of medicinal Guinness to get through this podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can enjoy this. Oh, creamy fucking pints, Jamie. I needed that. I'm going to need a couple more. Good evening. Welcome to therapy again. Well, you didn't want to do this, but we're back to therapy on the Port Adelaide.
Dave. Fancy seeing you here after another disappointing loss. I suppose therapy is back in session. Hello to you, and yeah, well done on that creamy fucking pint. Yeah, I'm sure some people are like, how long are we going to be here for? Little do they know the talents of Dave's chugging ability, but nonetheless, we do have a football game to discuss. So let's get through it as best as we can.
Yeah, as best as we can. Famous last words. In round one, again, I say this, we're in the middle of March and we're already just like, we will get to some points. I know we've texted, as we always do, between the end of the game and recording, and there's different things. There is objective things to look at and things to be maybe, okay with, but by and large, it was a very, very disappointing afternoon at Marvel. I want to start with, just in general, a point I've wanted to make, and something that's been percolating in my mind for a little bit as we get further and further away from being a top 4 contending team, and we kind of are in this transitional period. And I think after a game like this, and when you look at the respective lists and you go, well, North Melbourne are actually a more experienced list, games played, age profile, I think they're half a year older by average or something like that. So they're actually a team that is above us in as far as age and experience goes with both games played and age. And I listened to Koshi in preseason again saying that this isn't a team that rebuilds. And I want to get I've loved a lot of what Koshi's done. I won't be like one of those area people that just shits on him all the time now because of where the club's at. But it is one area I want us to actually just be realistic about. You can say you're rebuilding. It doesn't mean you have. It's like there are spectrums of rebuild. There is the ones like, certain teams that have to really strip it all the way back to the studs basically and rebuild it from the ground up. And you can be in some stage of a rebuild. I know Koshi just it's more of a mantra thing and what Adelaide's expectation is. But we also have to understand the world we're in now, which is also what the club sometimes tries to tell us. This is a team that is rebuilding, and we got a sharp reminder of that on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I think clubs are just scared to use the word because it may deter potential members and the general public buying tickets. But it didn't seem like any secret to me that we were a team in transition. Like you mentioned, we were less experienced than North, and my thoughts, particularly after the loss and a way to cope, was a bit similar to Adelaide's surge last year. With all the top-end draft picks that they've got, of course they should be good. They should be.
Mhm.
They should have been doing a lot better than what they have been prior to round 1 of 2026. But unfortunately, a day where pretty much everything went wrong for us, and North turned up. And yeah, we copped the North that probably should have stood up much earlier in the piece, such as 2025, for example. But that doesn't take away from the fact that they came to play, and by and large, we didn't. And yes, I think we have all just got to accept the reality of where we're at. At the same token, like, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It is round 1. We've changed a lot over the off season. Excuse me. And while it looked good against Adelaide in the preseason and looked great against West Coast, whether it be the 2-week break or whatnot, we just weren't in the right headspace, and we need to correct that very quickly. The good thing now is that we have another game 7 days after the one that we just played, and we have some atonement to make. However, we need to sit in this and review it as harshly and as constructively as possible, because one thing that even the most inexperienced people can display, and the Gold Coast effort last round of last year was a perfect example. Effort is what you can bring no matter your experience, and effort goes a long way, such as sticking tackles and chasing, defending hard. Some of the things that definitely didn't occur on a regular or a disciplined enough basis. And for a podcast titled The Creed, I feel that people tune in and we're obliged to discuss elements of just that, the Port Adelaide Creed. And when it doesn't get displayed, everyone's worth reminding of what it's about.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point to bring up, because I think that was one of many aspects of the game that were disappointing, was just, the lack of application and lack of, I think that even the commentators mentioned that Port Adelaide played with such a good level of intensity in preseason, and it was strangely absent in this game. I think actually commentators, or maybe it was a text message you sent amongst the many that we've exchanged in the post mortem of that game, just being surprised at the lack of intensity, and it kind of just looked like it. And I guess you could objectively say it just looks like a team playing their first game for actual premiership points under a new coach. A coach's game 1 versus a coach that has won 4 premierships at is an all-time great at a previous team, and maybe is finally getting the team that he's now at. And now, Alistair Clarkson and the Kangaroos playing the brand of footy he wants to play. And obviously, he said they've had a lot to fight draft picks, and at some point, this does start having to come together for them. They have Luke Parker and Jack Darling have decent games. Luke Parker had a very good game, and coming up from halfback and kicking a goal, and just playing and taking some great marks in the back line as well. And just, you had kind of all of the pieces come together for them, both in veterans and young stars, whereas we just had veterans kind of left out to dry a little bit, and both ends of the field. Maybe it's more at the back end where some of our extreme veterans are at the moment, and the likes of Alir and Asava and Todd Marshall at this point is starting to get towards one of the more older players on the list as well, despite his youth in games played. There was a synergy that was evident with North Melbourne right from the off that just wasn't there for us, and I think that's part of what can extrapolate out to looking like a lack of intensity, which it is a lack of intensity, but I don't think it comes from, to give them maybe some undeserved credit. I think that to me, they look like a side suddenly realizing, shit, we haven't actually played under this coach that much, and this team that we're coming up against is switched on, and we just do not have enough experience to be as switched on as them and know what we're doing in pieces of it. Because for large parts of the first half, we actually were right there with them, but they just looked more whenever they looked more damaging. Even when they weren't damaging us, they looked like they had the threat to be more damaging than we did. If that makes sense to you, I just feel like, even watching back the first half, that even when we were close with them, I was like, objectively, we should be there should have been moments for us to take over this game, but it didn't actually look like we ever had the wherewithal to do that, whereas the Kangaroos looked like they were threatening to take it over, and of course they did.
Yeah, the wherewithal is an interesting word to use. There was, large portions of the game where we looked half cocked in our efforts to go forward. I mean, Josh Carr mentioned being kind of caught in between in our defensive setup and not either being too far away or halfway there from a
Mhm.
contest. But yeah, I think the thing that let us down, I mean, it looked good early. We kicked the first 2 goals and we thought it was just going to keep rolling. We were cutting them up, but I feel that we didn't, we didn't use the ball as effectively as we should have.
Mhm.
I mean, across the whole game, there were so many, a similar amount of inside 50s in the end, but one team just used the ball far better and was much more damaging. The biggest thing for me in both of those first 2 quarters was just the run on of goals late. And I mean,
Mhm.
I think it was in the second half. There was about 5 or 6 minutes to go, and Jack Revolt, and who was the other ex player in comms? They were commenting. Oh, Cam Mooney. They were commenting on the round one game and the last 5 minutes of the first half, and how shit you feel, how gassed you feel.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, it was after they had that discussion that we looked flat as shit, and North had their late burst, and we messaged about that, just how it all kind of, the catalyst for it was that pretty harsh 50-meter penalty on Mitch Georgiadis, and whether it was there or not, we just seemed to fold like a deck of cards late. That was maybe a bit symbolic of potentially how gassed we were and just holding on by the skin of our teeth just to get to half time and reset. But 50-meter penalty and bang, 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 all of a sudden it goes from a 7-point margin to a 25-point margin. And we're reeling. We come out after half time. And again, bang, bang, couple of goals, some just costly mistakes, particularly in our defensive 50, which I thought made the defensive players look worse than what I think they were on the day.
Yeah.
We've had too many discussions in the last 12 months of the defense being hung out to dry by the lack of defensive pressure up the field. And look, to an extent, I feel that that has definitely occurred again, but it's going to be, Lockie Jones has dropped chest mark, and Lockie Jones, who I thought actually had a pretty decent game in isolation, albeit not very many possessions for Lockie. Asava's dropped mark, which was actually Alir running into him. Dante Vizentini's dropped mark, which I think was maybe led to their first goal after halftime. So many pressure moments that we just collapsed and suffered the ultimate price of 6 points and a reset at the center. Like I said, everything that could go wrong kind of did, and North just built up a head of steam that we couldn't counteract, which is pretty damning considering who we do have on the park. And we were missing a bit of experience that would have been quite handy, I think. But all in all, North should be doing better than what they have over the last 12 to 18 months. But Port Adelaide should not be losing to them by 46 points.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the disappointing aspect of it, is that if we'd come up against the North Melbourne side playing the way they were, which clearly they did, obviously, but if we battled with them better and had, our skills in crucial moments were better, we just seemed to there was a lot of clangers, a lot of turnovers, embarrassing kind of lazy kicks was mentioned a couple of times for the commentary team as well. The Kane Farrell clearance kick
Bit too
out from
cute.
from the goal square. There was even a Willem Drury had a few nice inside 50 kicks, but he also had one where he just undercooked it to Mitch leading out, and Mitch was, when he got a clear run of space on Griffin Logue, he was getting the
Killed him.
separation, and Willem just missed him because Willem was a low pressure kick, and he just undercooked it, and similar to how Farrell undercooked the one. Because that one, I think the commentators kind of said, oh, it's a bit of a dangerous kick, but Alir had got himself the separation cutting back inside to the center, and Farrell, if he just kicked it like Farrell usually does, would have hit the target. So it's just like, there was just all these, again, lacks of synergy all over the field in different moments, and the drop marks are a part of that. Getting caught holding the ball a lot when they tried to brace, and it's just like the holding the ball rule is pretty clear, and reasonably adjudicated across the weekend from what I saw. Again, it's holding the ball. It's always going to be a spectrum that you're going to get annoyed with at times, but I didn't have too many issues with a lot of the ones we were caught with because I could see we were just not being smart enough with and not getting up to the speed of the game. North Melbourne were really, really applying the pressure and sticking their tackles, which was another thing. What was it, 20 odd missed tackles for us versus 8 or 9 maybe for them at most. And
Yeah,
we were the
if any Port
yeah.
Adelaide fan hasn't heard that stat by now, there you go.
Oh, it's really frustrating, and it's something. I mean, before we get into the lines and stuff, but I was actually just while I was waiting for you to jump online here, I was watching, just going through, some Instagrams, and obviously I mentioned I was watching Kane Corns doing his shirtless walk and talk, which was funny. But I also came across Chad Corns and Kim Dillon chatting, and Chad talking about his disgruntlement, which I with the fitness program, and not so much the fitness. He lauded certain aspects of it, aerobic and some of those qualities, but he said a frustration with him over the last year or so has been their lack of intensity in the gym, which is something that I brought up last year, and I felt like a little bit of a pat on the back for myself moment. I was like, okay, like Chad saw it as well. Again, I'm not saying that Chad's going to have his opinions. He's a former coach. Probably felt a little bit. He said he was a little bit taken aback by it, but also in hindsight sees it was probably the right time, and things were moving in that direction. So these things are all taken with a grain of salt. It is just his opinion, but it is an opinion that I had last year. So therefore, I feel good about it. But the lack of sticking tackles was an issue last year that I brought up a couple of times. The lack of size in our side at times. I just thought we just look smaller at times across the field. Even your smaller players on other teams look bulkier than ours do, and ours have put on some weight. And I think Chad did acknowledge that it's changing. He believes for the better, but these things don't happen overnight. But it is still something that's carrying on. And again, maybe something for people to actually look at as a positive going forward is these are just this is a little carryover part of what the issues were last year. And we're going to see these issues for a while still as we get transition out of the previous era and go into this one.
Yeah, that's right. I listened to that live as well, and he was very diplomatic in his, just to be sure to say, and not to say that Stewie Graham was doing anything wrong or is bad at his
Mhm.
job, just potentially focusing on other things, and also said that a footy club needs those kind of gym beasts, those gym addicts that kind of bring other people along, such as a Chad as a coach or a Charlie Dixon as a player. They just kind of, it has that, it rubs off on people and they kind of want to get involved. Whereas there's a lot of people, the leadership group for one, who are more footy minded and the aerobic
Mhm.
side of it. But yeah, like you mentioned, Tim Parham has made a bigger focus on getting their bodies up to scratch from a strength point of view. But it does take time, is what he said. I look, I think I'll go back to something I said before. Like, effort is the key, because we
Mhm.
saw you can be whatever size you fucking want. You know, George Gregan and Jonah Lomu, wasn't it, back in the day? You can be any size, but 1v1. It's the heart. It's the fight in the dog. The
Mhm.
Gold Coast game is the example that I brought up before. That was the perfect example of effort overcoming any deficiencies that you may have
Mhm.
in your strength or your experience or your setup and strategy. Like, it's so crucial, but it takes mental application too, which we
Mhm.
clearly, to me, just watching the game back, and for new listeners, thanks for jumping on. Appreciate the support. Our returning listeners will know that we watch a full replay because we're sadistic like that. But just
I
watching
said
it
to
back,
I was going to say
what was
shout
it?
out to
What was it?
I said shout out to Kathy in the Instagram comments. I think I replied and said, we do this because we hate ourselves. So there's a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
self-deprecating humor here for the. We
yeah,
don't hate ourselves that much, but
yeah,
we do watch replays for
yeah.
sadistic reasons.
I cut,
Oh man.
I cut so I can feel. Um,
Uh,
no, not to make light of that. Uh, look after your mental health, everyone. But
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
just
watch
watching it
court
back,
replays.
there was so many instances of a team that just looked like it was trying to shed habits that it had built up over 12 to 24 months
Mhm.
and trying to implement a new game plan, which again has been well publicized. If the West Coast game wasn't so fucking good in the preseason, maybe the perception would have been a bit different. Again, you shouldn't be losing to North Melbourne by 46 points. But yeah, there was so many things like, and just people trying, yeah, a bit too cute. You mentioned some of those lazy kicks, but even handballing to players under pressure, which again is just
Yeah.
such a byproduct of recent years as well. Just
Yeah.
that over
That's keeping
handball
it
and game
against the
style
wall.
that we
Yeah.
yeah, we tried to implement last year, and we've clearly, just by the talk of the coaches and leaders, we're trying to move away from that heavy handball. So I mean, speed of ball movement is the catchphrase of the moment, and handball is a useful tool. But it was just like there was a few times Zach Butters, and he can do this early in a season. I think he gets a bit overstimulated as Zach Butters, and he just tries to, like, he tried to handball while he was in midair a few times, and it just wasn't there. Like it's
Mhm.
just some basic errors that had a drastic flow on effect. But we looked like we were confusing a couple of different game plans, which, again, it's round one. We all signed up for change, as far as I was aware. It's a shit game. I'm not going to doomsday like I've seen way too many people kind of. I said to you, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, I never
Mhm.
do after. I didn't after a 90-point loss last year, and I guess that was a sign of things to come. But I mean, Collingwood's game the week before that was kind of being broken down like we're breaking down this game right now, and they ended up playing in a prelim. Now, I don't think we're going to play in a preliminary final this year, but it just goes to you look at any team, any first round, which is the waters are muddied by opening round and round one, but any first round or round one of the any year, take your pick, and there's always shit scores of teams that end up playing finals anyway. And again, I said in our preview, I've said in our preseason, I'm not expecting magnificence, but I'm not going to doomsday after round one. We've clearly got things to work on, and I dare say we'll see a completely different effort against Essendon on Sunday, or I desperately hope so. But it's worth discussing the lines as we saw them on the day because they can't hide from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that is very good segue into getting into it. I said we probably should start. I think where the genesis of a lot of our, I guess, some of the disappointment, certainly some maybe some minor highlights, but overall, I think the midfield. And shout out to Simon on Simon, who I've met at one of the women's games last year, and who regularly is in contact. So shout out to you for, and I loved you sending through your thoughts. What are your thoughts, Simon? Shirtless walk and talk. He did one of the points he made a few points, and I'm just opening up his message now, and he said he's really questioning our supposed star midfield, as this is where the game was lost, in his opinion. We cannot hope to win out when our oppos get total freedom between the arcs to move the ball, and so that's a sentence or two kind of wrap up of kind of a lot of things we saw. But it's very, very true. We did cede both, particularly from stoppage. So we lost it in the middle marginally as well, despite having a heavy hit out advantage from Vicentini on the day. Probably got beaten around the ground by Cherry, but I think at the centre bounce it was a centre throw up, ball up. I'm going to do that a lot. Trust me. Probably I don't know if that'll ever change. It's centre bounce in my vernacular. So,
It
but
made me want to throw up. The game, that is.
yeah, I was going to say that. But yeah, we got smashed at the clearance. Like center clearances in the end was 12-12, but I think that was led by the Kangaroos most of the day, and whether we got a couple back. But it's really the plus 11 for the Kangaroos at stoppage. So and a lot of that's happening, between the arcs or at forward 50. And I
Mm-hmm.
I find that really, really concerning. To be well beaten by an opposition midfield, we didn't have anyone over 24 disposals. Rosie at 24, Butters at 23. You'd expect one of those guys, if they're playing bulk midfield time, to be getting up towards the 30 if you want them. Butters had 15 in the first half and he couldn't manage 9 disposals in the second half, so he just couldn't find a way into the game in the second half. As it got away from us very, very quickly there. And before I throw to you, one more stat, 79.5% disposal efficiency for the Kangaroos. So they almost ran at 80% for the game versus our 70. And as always, I like to make this caveat because you could go, oh, well, 10% more. But they also had 370 disposals versus our 287. So they've gone at 10% better with almost, 83 disposals more for the game. So they've kicked their ass in efficiency whilst also kicking their ass for just disposals across the match. And again, a lot of that comes down to the midfield battle.
Yeah, and not only that is, more contested possession, more disposal overall, like you said, but more tackles, which is something that I know you highlighted a lot last year. And it's something that we both agree, and I'm sure a lot of people agree. If you're going to lose disposal, at least bloody win the tackle count. And we couldn't even do that. Not to heavily denigrate on an opposition player, because swings and roundabouts in football, but I said to you, like, I can't cop being beaten by a North Melbourne side where Dylan Stephens is best on ground. I mean, the guy is fighting for his career, but it's probably his best game he's ever played. I just think there was a distinct lack of defensive accountability, or so it seemed. These guys looked like they had a world of space on the outside. More instances of us being drawn into a contest and being cut up on the outside. But again, when you've got players like Jacob Ware, who's new to our system, although having a certain amount of games experience, you've got McKinlay, who's very fresh. Some of these things are going to happen, but again, with the midfield of Zach Butters, Connor Rosie by and large, Willem Drew, Jace Bergman on a wing. Miles Bergman was pretty vacant. I don't know what was going on there. I assumed that we would see a lot more of him in the midfield. That's kind of what I was led to believe heading into the season. But he had 3 shots on goal.
Yeah, but he was like wanted to see. He was lost for large parts of the game. I forgot he was there, kind of areas. Like you just versus how much you were expecting to see him. We both in our squad show were like, and just in our previews leading into the year, mentioned him a lot as wanting to see him taking far more CBAs, and it just it's really concerning. I was just scrolling through trying to find. I think he had 12 disposals for the game, or am I misremembering? Bergman and Horne-Francis both had 12 disposals for the game. Horne-Francis obviously playing in a unique role at the moment with the fact that they're trying to ease him into midfield time, and they're managing injury and he's playing forward time. But so 12 disposals for Horne-Francis in a game that was a bit of a struggle for both him and the side at large isn't surprising to me. But 12 disposals for Bergman is a surprise to me. I'm expecting a Bergman who's having a decent amount of CBAs and just a decent amount of midfield time to be getting, touching 20 at least, even if it is an average game.
Absolutely. And this is where, as much as we love Connor, I just hope we're not kind of flirting with the trend of the AFL at the time and messing up something that worked very well last year, in my opinion. We seemed to have an emergence of a Miles Bergman and an emergence of Connor Rosie in another facet. So I can't understand it. Again, I kind of touched on it before. If you're giving me Miles Bergman 3 shots on goal at the start of the game, I'm probably taking it. But he's a player that has defensive accountability. So, yeah, when we're getting cut up through contested possession and leaking chains of possession, Miles Bergman in and around the ball a bit more often seems like a wise move. So I don't know what was happening there. I don't know. Yeah. I'll finish off that point with saying that, similar note to the Collingwood game last year. And just as a side note, like, I have a good way of protecting speaking of mental health, last year signed up for a Asian cooking class, which was bloody sensational for Collingwood's, shellacking of Port Adelaide at the MCG. I can still, my mouth salivates at the red curry that we made that night, and then this Sunday installing ceiling fans and running Ethernet cable through my roof. So I have a good way to distract myself from the live game in round one. Probably, having an eerie feeling and not wanting to accept it. The silver lining that can come out of, not come out of this, but what I'm hoping when we come up against Essendon is same thing I said last year after the Collingwood game. All of these players that we rely upon, Zach Butters, Willem Drew, Connor Rozee, Miles Bergman, for example, they've all clearly displayed better games at football. It's not like we're going to get a 23 disposal Zach Butters again and a 12 disposal Miles Bergman. We know that they're capable of more. It's just about application on the day, which for whatever reason just eluded them. I'm a Nuffy on a podcast. I have no idea. You can't ask the people involved with football because they obviously have to keep their cards close to their chest. But it's as we chatted about in our preview, it's a midfield group that should be performing better. And for whatever reason, whether it be strength and conditioning, whether it be mental application, as Chad said, for 12 months now, the midfield seems to be letting us down when it should be, by and large, our best line on the ground. Not by and large, by far. And I mean, and Ollie Wines, for his in-tight contested work, was probably missed. I believe I saw Anthony from the pair mention that. Sam Powell-Pepper kind of chopping out in the midfield at times when North Melbourne built up a head of steam. Those type of players, and that's experience as well that we sorely missed. Unfortunately, we're not going to get either of them back. Ollie Wines back in a couple of weeks' time now. But, we've got another game to play, and the midfield needs to lift. The good thing is we know that they can perform better. They have actually displayed better performances on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Zach Butters, we expect to be, he's already probably rated as top 10 in the competition by many, if not all, and we know he can ascend to being, he's a Brownlow medalist in the future potentially. Hopefully for us, though, seems unlikely at times. But that's the caliber he can be, and we know. I was probably mostly happy, even though it probably didn't all come together at times. A few missed kicks here and there, and but he was not alone. But I was kind of okay with kind of how Willem Drew was utilised. It seemed like he had more responsibility than last year, a little bit more defined role. He was doing a lot of attacking midfield play as well. I think he had 7 inside 50s for the game, and was decently involved in kind of some setup play, and had some really nice was involved in some really nice passages of play, as few and far between as they were. I was kind of okay with how he was utilised in his first match. Obviously, a lot of things around him didn't go well, and it's the midfield mix more so than just him alone that's going to be the question in the next few weeks, and hopefully we see a few more answers pretty quickly this week. But as two certified Willem Drew fans, I was reasonably happy with it. Not like stoked out of this world, but I was just like, okay, because last year was a bit of an indifferent year. We've said that many times, and I was okay with kind of how he was utilised. Again, I want to see a bit more out of the group and a little bit more synergy, but I think Willem kind of played okay, which was encouraging for me to see, considering the result wasn't all that great.
Yeah, huge Willem fan. Room for improvement, of course, like everyone, but you can see what they're trying to do and utilising him more. It will be interesting once an Ollie Wines does come back into the side. You would probably imagine for a Jack Watkins at this point in time anyway.
Yeah.
Rotation shouldn't be affected as much. Just on Watkins before we move on. 10 disposals. Took a couple of contested marks, I think it was. But a couple of possessions where you could see what he was doing, but just hung it up there and allowed defensive pressure on some of his passes. 54.5% disposal fish. Oh no, 50%. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong person. huge learning curve. And this plays into it, you know, a North that should be better and a Port Adelaide that, you know, perhaps we overrated in our preview, but we did also say that we needed to respect our opposition, which I think didn't happen at certain stages in the game, which severely hurt us.
Yeah. And that's probably a problem with kind of, it's like, again, an expectation thing that I was kind of talking about with the rebuild stuff and all that. Like, I want us to kind of bring ourselves back down to earth and not be a team that is expecting to make, like, you know, we should be making finals every year. It's like, you know, at some point we have to acknowledge where we are. You can still reach for the sky, like Cowboy. Like, you know, it's like you can be rebuilding and also just like, let's try and make finals. Like, both of those things can be true. But I think we allow ourselves to disrespect the opposition a bit too much via the way we kind of try to tell both internally as the club and tell the fans what we're doing. And as you said, you know, this is all marketing a little bit as well. But at some point, you know, you need to, a lot of the dyed in the wool fans such as ourselves, you know, it's not our first rodeo. We know what, you know, you and I are still turning up to as many games as we can, regardless of what's going on. Yes, you would there's a drop off, but we want to see, you kind of want to see a team understand where they're at and then try to climb from there. But yeah, we've certainly sandbagged ourselves into a pretty rough start. So hopefully it can only be up from here. Moving on from the midfield, I wanted to start with the midfield because I think a lot of what was average there bled out to both an average forward half game and obviously a defense that got overwhelmed at times with some bursts of runs of play from North Melbourne. I guess we can go to the defense now. I think they held up. It's funny. I look at the 8 goals that North Melbourne scored in the first half, and 6 of those are in time on essentially, and in like 3-minute bursts. They didn't score their first goal for the game until about 4 minutes to go in the first quarter or something like that. Then they score 3 in the last 4 or 5 minutes there. And then again, as you said, they scored a couple in the first. You know, there was a little bit of back and forth, return fire going on for the first portion of the second quarter. But by and large, Port Adelaide were actually controlling the game, if not exceeding in, like they were, you know, I think North Melbourne were controlling the game and they kind of were just accepting the pressure and were feeling pretty comfortable because Port Adelaide, unfortunately, were just passing around the back a lot and not really doing much incisive play. But we did have a couple of nice moments. There was a nice Todd Marshall kick into the middle that set up a Corey Durden poster, I think, but almost a goal. Should have been a goal. And there were some nice moments, but by and large, we just weren't probably pressing the issue enough. And then when North Melbourne got their chance, fortuitous as it was to the Mitch Georgiades 50, Ali Comben fucking kicks a goal. I felt like there was a tweet back when Brendan Rodgers' Liverpool side smashed Tottenham 5-1. And John Flanagan scored, who, like, you know, no one knows who John Flanagan is anymore. But there was a tweet like, oh, fuck, even Flanagan scored when he just roofed one against Tottenham. And I just felt like that when fucking Comben scored. I was like, oh, fuck, even Comben scored. Like, even though it was the start. It was
deep defender. Like, Dylan Stevens is BOG, for fuck's sake. These things tend to happen. You know, it was the Hoskin Elliott type effect when we used to play Collingwood. It's just like he would always have his best game. But yeah. I mean, when it rains, it pours. I agree. Probably rehashing something that we've already spoken about. But yeah, I did feel like in the first half we had moments of control. And remember, we had that large period of games at Marvel Stadium where we drew up that consecutive winning. I can't remember how many games it was, maybe 10 games in a row. Just off the top of my head at Marvel Stadium. And before that, we actually had a terrible record for a while. But I feel like we just lent into that. It's a fast deck. We're going to attack it hard. And I feel that in stages of that first half, when we had ascendancy or we had control of the ball, we just didn't maximize it by using speed of ball movement. We seemed to be a bit too careful. But on top of that, one thing I did notice was, it's funny you bring up a soccer reference. They did camp their defense back a little bit and then tried to just counter us, which I fucking hate. Jose being
Mourinho
there live paints a bigger picture, but just going to so many games of football and coming up against lesser teams, usually when it's a dogfight and people watching on TV are like, oh, you know, we should be kicking so many more goals, but what they actually fail to realise is that the opposition, because they're so low on the ladder, they're just camping their defence, like numbers back, and then just trying to break you open on the counter. Look, you got to do what you got to do, but it's just gross. I don't like it, but it's what they were doing. So it made it hard, but I feel that we had so many opportunities to be further ahead before they had the burst in the first quarter and then the burst in the second quarter as well. And we didn't capitalize. We just kind of meandered, tried to control the ball a bit too much, and we paid the price. And then again, like I said, it just unraveled because North went into halftime with a head of steam. But in terms of the defense, we've given up some of these. I mentioned it off the top. Gave up some of these really shitty skill error goals, like dropping marks and things like that. And we'd all like to cancel them out. But I think the defense, like, they're under a bit of siege. I actually kind of liked Asava's game, to be honest. I think he was actually our best defender. Coming off of an interesting preseason. 5 1%ers, 4 contested defensive one-on-ones, and he only lost one. Yeah, there was that moment where he dropped the mark, but I feel that was actually more Alir's fault for running into him, where, as Mark Bickley wanted to bring up in the pre-match, it was Asava doing that to other people.
But
in 2024,
in the game, was that the one that Asava, like, after? I think if you look at the footage, if I'm thinking of the right one, Asava kind of gesticulates a little bit and like kind of goes, what exactly he said, I don't know, but it looked like a what the fuck, hands out to the side. Like,
I think it was kind of in the pocket. Is that what was it, near kind of the pocket of our defensive 50? Is that what you're kind of thinking of?
So maybe it happened another time. There was a moment where Alir and him were together. There was a moment where him and Alir were in frame. They kind of crashed into each other a little bit on some, and Asava just gesticulated and exasperated about something, and you could tell he was just frustrated with how, and it was interesting to see him kind of taking up on that kind of frustration rather than, because you automatically just assign Alir as captain of the defense, and I still do. But it was just interesting to see Asava kind of looking a little bit frustrated with and it looked like it was just that there was a miscommunication about positioning and who was going and who was, how the kind of help defense was going. So whether that's the same situation or I noticed another one, I don't know. But
well, maybe, yeah. And is that a byproduct of Alir playing master and apprentice with Harrison Ram for that period of the preseason, and now he's got his right-hand man back? He can kind of give a bit more trust away, but just confusing the two situations. Who knows? We saw last year they built up a really good relationship when they did have games together while Asava was on the park. But yeah, I kind of thought, again, he was probably the best defender on the day, to be honest. Will grind some people's gears. Call it as I see it. I thought the game from Todd Marshall was pretty good for a first game in defense. Obviously playing the third tool interceptor type role, and his disposal was really fucking good. So I know that's the key characteristic. I think he went at 85% disposal efficiency, and there was one possession where he
on the ground as well for us anyway.
Yeah. There was one possession, I think it was an intercept mark, and then he just bullet kicked it straight up the guts. It was kind of on the center square wing line, and just hit someone on the chest.
That's the one I was talking about, where he hit. I might be the one I was thinking about. There's one where he took the intercept mark, bulleted it up to, I think, Willem, and then Willem put it into to Corey Durden, who should have kicked the goal.
Yes.
I think that's pretty.
Did he miss that shot? Yeah.
He did. It looked like he kind of started it too close to the post and just shaved in and kind of shaved the post. It was actually, he should have kicked the goal, but we'll get to the forwards in a moment.
Yeah,
I was reasonably happy with some of Durden's stuff, but Marshall was good. Marshalled things well, and that you can see why they want
nice.
Yeah, you can see why they want those that disposal back there, considering his marking ability and his interceptability. Obviously, we sweat on. Though interestingly enough, the obviously the ankle injury on the day. By the way, I can't the fucking and this is nothing to do with her being a female umpire, but fucking the umpire making him stand the mark. Like, he's clearly fucking hobbling. And she just goes, no, you got to fucking stand there, stand the mark, and then you can hobble yourself off the field. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, it's just I don't know. I thought that was
Yeah,
bewildering.
yeah, it's
to
poor
me.
form. Yeah, I saw the outcry on social media by Port Adelaide fans, and yeah, it's just a kind of lack of awareness, bit of a
Yeah,
duty of care kind of thing going on there. Like, yeah, he's just been landed on,
clearly in a lot of
and
pain.
that was and like comedy of errors type stuff. Like, I think it was it Asava who was tackling? I can't remember who had the free kick, but then basically tackled them into Todd Marshall.
Yeah, and his foot just
So
got
it was a
caught under
genuinely
the-
good tackle, but then, yeah, Todd was just there and it was high because he got tackled into Todd and landed on his ankle. So good to hear that he's probably going to be up and running for this Sunday's game,
Yeah, he's
especially
not
with
on
the
the
news
injury
of
report.
Harrison Ram out of
Mm.
today, which is quite disappointing with the syndesmosis injury at training. So, yeah. We don't want to be dipping too far into our stocks this early like we were last season. So, yeah, hopefully he can get up and he'll be all right. I just feel overall with the defensive end, everyone had okay games. And it's fair enough to acknowledge them having okay games, but okay games still leaks goals, even though there is the caveat of the lack of defensive pressure up the field. Because I could think of every defender, maybe except for Kane. Kane Farrell was a bit of an average game, in my opinion, particularly for the status that he has in our team. He is a leader now. He needs to play like it. But yeah, Asava, Todd, Logan Evans, even Aaliyah, even though those couple of missteps and clashing of defenders, they all had moments where I go, yeah, you've done all right. But like I said, all right's not good enough. The good thing is, though, that we know a lot of these players can play better. Like I said, with the midfield, they just need to do it.
Yeah, no, I think the three tools all had okay game. Like, I'm glad you brought up Radicalier because I know I saw some people kind of saying, oh, get him out of the side. But I think he actually played okay. I think, this is a defense that often we often say it. It's a defense that's helped by, some help upfield. So, I think the pressure they were put under, and like we said, they held up for a fair bit of time in that first half, and just and some of those bursts, like after obviously the Charlie Comben goal doesn't go on the defense at all because he kicks it from outside 50 after a 50-meter penalty from the defensive half. Then it goes, I think it's the next centre clearance comes out to Colby McKercher, who just fucking darts inside and slots one from 40 out. So again, the defense hasn't had a chance to actually do any defending there. It's a midfield issue there. And then the next one comes out and McKercher almost squirts one through again, but then it's just a comedy of errors of a ball pinballing around. And I think it comes to Zane Dersma, who snaps that one in. That suddenly it's 3 goals in a minute of
bang, bang, bang.
of play that the defenders that have had barely a chance to touch it. So, and then, the second half just became, trying to stop the bleeding and the Kangaroos actually at that point got a wind in their sails. And I don't know how much of the second half performance I put too much stock into, apart from just the lack of intensity. I don't, the defense was put under more pressure and we just kind of stopped playing a lot in that second half and just it felt like we were just trying to figure things out and occasionally got a couple of goals in a row. And
yeah, like, well, we did. Well, we
by
didn't.
the way, shout out to Dwayne Russell, after we bring it within 35 points, saying, "Oh, this one's going to the wire." Like, thanks for trying, Dwayne. But
yeah. Well, and to be fair, like in that fourth quarter, we didn't win a quarter. That's just a side note, which goes along with the lack of fight. But in the fourth quarter, like, yeah, we pegged the first 2 goals. And what was that? The only time we kicked back-to-back goals since the first quarter. Kicked the first 2 goals of the fourth to bring it to within 25 points and potentially save face because it was probably beyond us. Although
Hey, we saw that Hawthorn game a couple of years ago. That was
Yeah. And while North
modern
Melbourne should be
AFL.
better, it is still North Melbourne. They could get a bit shaky, and the commentators were cheering it on. But then, more pinballing and lack of, or not lack of, more broken tackles, and Paul Curtis just kicks back and they go on for another run. So, there was that's it. Like the periods of us wanting to actually assert ourselves or knuckle down were just too few and far between. And who knows why? They'll know why. They'll review it harshly, I think. But our defense was put under too much undue pressure on top of their own shortcomings and mistakes along the way, while the damn walls were cracking and then breaking.
Yeah, it was a disappointing a disappointing defensive effort from the front, like the guys that are in front that we want protecting them, I think, and that's what kind of my main takeaway was from it again, is that the best defensive teams are teams that have help upfield, and then they can rely on. I think that's what happened to the Kangaroos conversely, and we can move to just talking about our forwards briefly before we get into the segments, because I don't think it's too much to write home about in the forwards. A few plus points and a few disappointing aspects of it. Again, not helped by delivery from upfield. But conversely, the North Melbourne defense had just enough help, maybe from us not trying to penetrate enough, and just from having some more intensity and application at the high half forward areas into the midfield. They did get that help and intensity, and that allowed the Combins and Logues. Like Logue was beaten by Georgiades a couple of times, but he didn't have enough. Georgiades didn't have enough opportunity from upfield delivery into him to allow Griffin Logue to be exposed too often, and that was kind of the opposite issue at the other end of the field. Is like you were getting, just a lot of good delivery inside that Aaliyah was sometimes getting caught, having a front. I think it was a front on contact from Asava at one point. Aaliyah was getting caught holding it. There was just too many moments where, and we didn't get enough of that the other way, because Georgiades, if he'd had better delivery, could have really exposed Logue. Side note, loved that there was at least two jersey number matchups, like Vicentini and
there was
Cherry.
3.
There was 3. Oh, so I've got Vicentini and Cherry, obviously, and then Logan, Georgiades. What was the other one?
George with 19. What?
This is real. I love trains.
What's Cherry? So there was 38. I think it was Ollie Lord. Hang on, let me bring up.
Oh, Lord and Combin?
Yeah, I think 30 and 30. Yeah.
Yeah. I just found that really interesting to myself, and I'm glad that you.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, five real nuffy areas.
Yeah, no, it's just cool to see a jersey number matchup and in genuine one-on-ones. Like obviously Vicentini and Cherry in the ruck, and then when you've got 219, like George's 19, like charging out ahead of Griffin Logue's 19, it was just I was like, that's fucking cool. Anyway, too much Tylenol. The forward half, Burton and Whitlock. Reasonably happy with their kind of. Well, I mean, Whitlock's not a debut, but it feels like a debut a little bit because he's starting his first season in earnest.
Man. Durden, I agree. Yeah. He's a young player. He's still making his way at the top level. A bit like the St Kilda game last year. It was a bit like if you told me before the game type stuff. George kicks his 3 goals from 4 shots. Whitlock kicks 2 goals, and you say Corey Durden has 2 or has 4 shots on goal. You're absolutely taking that. The problem is that that's just about where it ends in terms of our firepower and our goal kicking. Unfortunately, the midfielders didn't come along and contribute anywhere near enough. Butters had his 2 shots that both were behinds. Unfortunately, Horne-Francis couldn't get on the board. Nice tackle on, was it Caleb Daniel, to get him the free kick in the pocket. Let's say 8 times out of 10, maybe he's kicking that snap, drifted across the face. Just on JHF, though, one thing I did notice out of the game, and there's been a bit of commentary about him, but most level-headed people would understand that he's coming from a fair way back, and that's why he is in the forward line. But one thing that I did notice was that he is 5th for our contested possession on the day. and he is 6th for our pressure acts on the day. You know, while he's only had the 12 disposals and he's had the 1 shot on goal, there's some defensive stuff there that he can hold his head high about, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd agree.
he's got a lot of work to do, but like there, and even he had a couple of moments in the middle where it was just like, I want more of that, but he can't give it just yet. But in terms of forward play, yeah, I mean, DBJ actually ended up with the most pressure acts on the field for Port Adelaide. So a bit like the defensive end, can't really hang
in there, and
yeah, and so he should. He's a leader. He's one of our more experienced players. So these are the things that he should be doing. It's just good that he did do them. And much like the defensive end, can't really hang too much shit on the forwards. They did what they could. George won his position, I think. When he was given the chance to mark, he did. He looked strong. He looked good. It was good to see Durden contribute because we need that.
Durden had a couple of nice contested.
Small forward presence.
Just trying to find his contested mark numbers, whether they counted them as contested. No, he doesn't have any contested marks. So there's a couple of out in front ones where he kind of got separation as defender and got out in front and he just took a couple of nice marks. Amongst his goal kicking, he did obviously miss that one he should have kicked, but he kicks a couple more. And every player that have ever enjoyed kicking goals for Port Adelaide has missed some. They should kick at some point. So he kicked a couple and had a decent debut. He took 5 marks for the game, Durden, which is a fairly good stuff for a smaller forward. To be if he's able to be a good marking smaller forward is a very, very good thing for us. And then obviously if he converts, he probably should have 3-1 for the day. But he's got 2-2 and a decent game under his belt to start.
Yeah.
Again, only 7 disposals, 5 marks, a couple of goals. That as the game gets better and as the delivery gets better and as we get better as a side, if that's his baseline in an average outing for the side as a whole, then that's promising.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, yeah. And then Whitlock kicks a couple as well, leads well. He only has the 3 disposals for the game, but he's presenting well, and his leading was very, very good. He had that really good charge out from kind of full forward, take a chest mark, more or less directly out in front where he converts and converts.
I thought he marked one on the line. It was called a behind, and then there was no telecast review or anything like that. I swear he marked it.
It's like he's controlled that, but I often sometimes I'm like, is that a catch? And I'm like, wait, this isn't the NFL. So I'm like looking at where the feet are and where the ball's controlled, and then I'm like, wait, no, that's just like the AFL just kind of goes, nah, it wasn't a mark. Like it's just
Well, I'm pretty sure I saw him kind of, and he was talking to the goal umpire about it because the goal umpire.
I think
already moving on.
Saying, I've marked it, and that's what the AFL kind of just does that sometimes, and commentators
would have been handy.
Yeah, and I'm sure he
would have loved that goal. You got any more of those goals? Yeah, but I mean, there are a couple of watches to come out of the forward line though. Go to Joe Barry first. After looking so good in the preseason, just a bit deer in headlightsy in his first outing.
When he gets it, when it clicks for him, it's going to be really good. But it's just annoying that again we've gone into round 1. It's been underwhelming.
And we did see it. Yeah, we saw it late in the season last year where he kind of got that flair, but bright lights of Marvel Stadium just undid him. Yeah, he looked. It was underwhelming. Yeah. He's definitely got more to give. And look, he'll probably get plenty of opportunities to do so. What was it? 11 disposals. He had 70% game time, so it wasn't. But you would have swore he had 30% game time with the kind of impact he was having. Young player, going to unfortunately get compared to Murphy Reid. For a very long time. But he just needs to keep his head
Sam
down.
Walsh and Rosie kind of thing.
It is. Fortunately for us, Connor Rosie was already impacting I've said it before, Connor Rosie's debut season was something to behold. I certainly, was.
I still remember tweeting
one of the best debut seasons I've witnessed from a Port Adelaide player.
Oh yeah, I still remember tweeting like it's back like before the Creed account was ever a thing, so it would have been on my personal account. Just something along the lines of who was number 20 again? Like after Rosie just
Mm.
kicked off, like and, I was still feeling a bit dirty about Chad Wingard leaving, and shout out to
Oh,
Chad Wingard,
Chad. Oh,
who's just
Chad.
seemingly got like a nice little relationship with Port again, because like the Guernsey that's behind me for those watching on YouTube, Chad Wingard posting on his Instagram stories about wearing the new. You can tell, and God, wouldn't it have been nice to see Chad Wingard running around in the fully charged long sleeve as well? Fuck me.
Tell you what would be good to see Chad Wingard kick the first goal of the game at a home
That
game.
gather round,
Just
yeah. Well, I guess, or a Port versus Hawthorn one would be.
just whatever. You know how they do the first goal with the past player.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'd be good to see him come back. I remember when Jay Schultz did it. Maybe it was even last year. And he was kind of like, yeah, this is the first time I've got to say kind of goodbye to the Port fans since I retired. And it's like,
Yeah.
however many years later. But it was, yeah, those some of those things are nice moments just to kind of, reconnect past players and the fans of
Mhm.
the day. I'd definitely like to see Chad back because talk about sights to behold. But I think we're digressing a little bit from the topic at
Yeah.
hand. We've touched on Joe Barry. The other one, obviously, being Ollie Lord. I made a point
Mm.
of saying in our preview show that you've got your chance. Lukosius isn't picked. Make an impact. And apart from a few aggressive hit outs, yeah, that's where it ended, unfortunately, for Ollie Lord.
It's
He's
frustrating.
still got pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah, it's frustrating snapshots that you get from Ollie Lord, even when in this game. Like you just, yeah, there was a couple of aggressive. I think there was a tackle at some point as well that I kind of enjoyed from him. He had the 2 tackles for the game, according to my stats I'm looking at right now. So it must have been one that I noticed. But then he he doesn't really kick a goal and beyond that shot at the end of the first quarter, where it's like it was a long shot anyway. It's just he never really threatened as a goal scorer. Obviously, he's there as a second ruck as well, and he has a 7 hitouts and serves a second ruck role as well as he can. But you just want more from him because there's that moment I think in midway through the third quarter, maybe that he kind of kicks. He's got like on the wing and just kicks, like tries to wheel around and just kicks it straight into the guy on the mark. It ends up in a bit of Benny Hill back and forth moment, and then I think it eventually ends up down the other end of the
Yeah,
field.
he kicks it backwards. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. In the end, because he gets it back, and then he kicks it to Kane Farrell, I think it was.
yeah.
Um,
Yes, that's exactly the one I'm thinking of. So it's just like
Play
that
the
stuff's just,
percentages.
and it's just like for a 5th or 6th year player, whatever it is now. Like I don't want to see you just fucking blamming it into the guy on the mark. Considering you're out in the wing, like it's not like it's a you've kind of got space, and like that's where your skills have. It's not like he's intending to kick it into the guy on the mark, but your skills or lack thereof in that moment has ended up in that happening. It's just like this is just unfortunately not good. He's playing the second ruck role as well. So how that kind of list management stuff comes into play this weekend, or selection stuff comes into play this weekend. Yeah, we didn't. I mean, we can finish off on the forward. So before we get to segments, we should just touch on Vicentini quickly because I don't think we did much before when we were
No, I
talking
was
about the
just thinking
midfield.
about
So
that.
maybe we should just
Mhm.
finish off on Vicentini. He has a 30 hitouts. He doubles up Cherry in hitouts, and his hitouts to advantage and hitouts to win percentage numbers are all pretty good as far as what he does in the hitouts game. So I'm okay with that. Cherry just beats him around the field.
Mhm.
And I don't know. There was a Facebook comment, and shout out to if you have the name, you can feel free to mention it. But um, someone did mention like what's Vicentini doing in the side. Sweet should be in there. I don't know. It's all sliding doors stuff, but does Sweet do much better again? Like Vicentini's game in the ruck game is good to me, or as best as you can hope against it. Tristan Cherry's one of the top 5 ruckmen in the competition to me.
So,
I have
yeah,
actually done.
absolutely.
Yeah. So you're playing one of the best ruckmen in the comp, in Tristan Cherry in a game that the Kangaroos were playing very well. Cherry does beat him around the field. So how do you go, how do you feel about Vicentini going forward? I'm happy for him to plug away for a couple more weeks and try to bed in the role. I don't know if Sweet would have done much better around. Maybe Sweet gets a few more disposals around the field because Vicentini only ends up with the 6 disposals. But beyond that, Sweet's not shown me, as much as I love Jordan Sweet's not shown me anything over the last couple of years that says he would have been out streets ahead of what Dante Vicentini did in this game.
Yeah, it was Jason Hinfalar on Facebook. So shout out for the comment in relation to the ruck quandary. I think it is a quandary though, because whether it was that preview show or maybe one of our at the Best 23 show, it's one of the more line ball calls because the coaches obviously like what Vicentini can do from a ball up point of view. But I do feel that Jordan Sweet, and I picked him as my first ruck for those playing at home, and listeners will know. I feel that Sweet would have provided a better contest around the ground, and stoppage clearance is where we lost out in terms of the overall clearance battle.
Fair. Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's tough because the coaches have obviously rewarded Vicentini for a good preseason, and they want to have a look at what he can provide with the new rule in place. But CBAs, as they're still written on the stat sheet on the AFL website, are only one portion of the game. And look, I dare say as the season progresses, the kind of surprise factor of the new rule and all of that will start to dissipate, and teams will work out methods to, for those bigger ruckmen, they'll figure out ways to better affect ball ups. So it is a really interesting call. Would Jordan Sweet have provided a better third or fourth forward option, tool option that is, or a better defensive help, plugging gaps and things like that? We're not to know now, but these are the questions that we're all definitely asking, and the coaches will surely be deliberating. I dare say Vicentini will get the nod again against Essendon, particularly because they have, is it Lockie Blackiston, who's was a SSP or a rookie selection. So he's, by all accounts, a very hardworking and effective supplementary ruckman. But Viz will probably get another shot. And it's a bit rough to drop a guy who has, like you said, from the stats, has, done the job from a hit-outs point of view. But the stats that we're looking at on a sheet don't marry up with the eye test. The eye test would suggest that he did get beaten. And a lot of ruckmen are going to get beaten by Tristan Cherry this year. That's, nothing to be ashamed of at this point in particularly Viz's journey. But the fact of the matter is Jordan Sweet's a very capable ruckman, and it's not like he's a dinosaur. He can still contribute to our football club for many years to come. It is one of the more, tougher discussions to have from who should be playing, who shouldn't be, because eye test, stats, and we all love Viz, but it would seem that there's not room for two unless they drops Ollie Lord, because that may pose a different question. Are you going to get more out of a Sweet and Vicentini versus a Vicentini and Lord? And unfortunately for Ollie Lord, that's a question that is now being asked because of the output that we got from him on Sunday, and we have gotten from him a fair few many times.
Yeah. I didn't even look it up. I wanted to look at how many, because, Whitlock kicking 2 goals in the game, and I was just like, how many, games recently has Ollie Lord really popped up and looked like he's going to threaten for 2 or 3 goals, which is what you want from him. And if he's not doing that and he's not really providing any more in the ruck than, well, he's not going to provide any more in the ruck than Vicentini and or Sweet are, then that's probably what happens in selection this week will be intriguing. And I wonder if they'll kind of try to give another chance to a couple of these, certainly Vicentini, and whether Lord gets another week because they're trying to slow roll the Lukosius into the season. Who knows? That will be the decision to make. But yeah, going forward, if particularly if Lord doesn't light things up against an Essendon side that's probably there for the taking again, I'm not going to get too overconfident as a Port Adelaide fan, and that we'll leave that for squads later in the week. But that is probably an intriguing question to ask: is does the dual ruck thing open itself up to you? Depending on what you're doing with Lukosius as well, there's a few different issues there. But Lord didn't certainly show himself to be any more capable of a forward as we've than we've seen like a Jordan Sweet be at times. So we've seen Jordan Sweet kick some fairly nice goals across the journeys. Yeah, you could potentially go that route as well. So some intriguing ones to come up ahead. Certainly. Anything else on the lines, Vicentini? Anything else before we get into segments and wrap up this shit show?
No, that's just about it from me. So let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Before we get into segments, I wanted to just jump in here quickly and just say a little bit of what they call in the biz a call to action, which is basically asking you to like, subscribe, and do all the things that help us algorithm better. So particularly if you're a Spotify or Apple Pods listener, or indeed wherever you're listening to your podcasts, rate and review them, because I think there's like 10 reviews on Spotify at a 4.8 average, which means we've pissed off someone. And like I've said to a few people when I've talked about this,
it's probably Donkey Courtroom on Twitter.
Yeah. Shout out to someone who will never listen to this podcast. And I don't want him to either. But if you're not pissing off someone in the sports podcast business, then you're not probably doing it right. But we do want you to go out there. If you do listen regularly and you enjoy what we do, give us a 5-star review on Apple Pods, Spotify, wherever you listen. And if you have an account in both, do it on both. Like, what we're asking you to do is like and subscribe wherever you've got accounts. So even if you predominantly listen to us on Spotify, but you've got a YouTube account, go and subscribe and add to the subscribe accounts on YouTube. Like the videos on YouTube if you get the chance. If you are watching on YouTube, like it. The likes on YouTube, even if you're watching it and you in your heart like what we're doing, if you actually click like on the YouTube video each time you're watching one of our videos, it helps it get out there. And all of these things help the podcast grow. We've never done any paid advertising. Certainly something I want to do at some point when the budget allows. But this has all been organic growth. And what helps is word of mouth. And the algorithm is a part of the word of mouth that can help us get out there. So like and subscribe on YouTube. So anywhere you've got accounts that we're there, which is predominantly the main ones that we do focus on are Spotify, Apple Pods, and YouTube. But Google Podcasts, wherever you're at, give us the likes, give us the subscribes, give us the 5-star reviews if the podcast platform allows. That helps just push it out there for people that are searching for Port Adelaide content, because we are the predominant podcast out there doing weekly shows and in-depth reviews and previews. So we want to get the word out there for as many as possible, and like have more people join the circle of misery as it is lately. But there'll be good times to come as well. So we want people getting on board before the good times come. We can all enjoy them together. So yeah, I mean that's about it for now. Of course, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. The email, thecreed1870@gmail.com as well, if you want to pop your thoughts in there as well. Anywhere you want to get in contact with us is great. But for now, let's get into the Wilson Gray Award.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Gray at his best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks truly.
Oh, God, couldn't you have enjoyed some Robbie Gray magic on a day like Sunday? Jamie, what do you got for us going first here? First one for the year.
Look, yeah, first one for the year. And like we discussed in text message, yeah, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to go off. For new listeners, though, the Wilson Gray Award is feats on the football field, the essence of football, the stuff that makes you laugh and smile, like that old Hot Ones Sydney Sweeney meme that was doing the rounds where she just looked happy and content with the world. Those moments on the football field, obviously excluding goals, which we'll bring up in our next segment. But look, yeah, not a lot to go off. Some of these things I've written down and have actually forgotten what they were. So that's how impactful some of these moments on the day were. But I'm going to go with something that I mentioned earlier, and that is Todd Marshall's kick into the guts, which did end up with a shot on goal, like you mentioned. It was sexy. I enjoyed it. It made me go, oh, and I guess that's the essence of the Wilson Gray.
So you're not chasing for the next 5 minutes. All these little marks.
Also gives you an opportunity. Port Adelaide miss a kick here. North have got to be sweating on it to make sure they make the most of the opportunity.
Now Marshall pulls the trigger down the corridor.
Oh, they're away here.
They are away. Drew to dirt, and he marks inside 50.
I love that. I actually had it in my short list as well, so I'm glad we, just great minds or Nuffy minds think alike. It was a great kick into the guts. it just kind of gave us a little tease as to what we what we talked about before, what Todd Marshall can provide as a defender and someone that can switch the play and get us going forward pretty quickly in that moment. It was a real switch from halfback to a goal scoring opportunity within like 10, 15 seconds, which is far too infrequent on the day. Great shout from you. Mine's probably a pretty easy one to pick. I just wanted to give because I think Connor Rosie got a little bit of. I think he got a lot of plaudits for his game on the weekend, but of course he had the slip up coming out of the kick in. Fucking Marvel turf, 26 years, they still haven't figured it out. He had a smother. It was about 2.5 minutes into the second quarter from a boundary throw in, a little bit of a congestion down in our forward half, and Dylan Stevens, who unfortunately was beyond BOG, as we've mentioned a couple of times, tries to kick it out, and Rosie, like we like to talk about a lot, does put his body on the line a lot more than people like to give him credit for, and he certainly kind of just charged into the opportunity to smother and keep the ball in congestion there. And from that point, it actually almost turned into a goal scoring opportunity after. There was a couple more ball ins there. There was a little bit of, ball going out and ball ins happening, but it did end up in a moment where I think the ball kind of flashed across the goal face, and the Kangaroos eventually clear, but from that moment, Connor Rosie smothering what would have been a clearing kick, it did actually end up in what was, close to a goal scoring opportunity. So, Connor Rosie's smother.
It was like pulling the rope on the toboggan so it didn't go down the hill as fast, wasn't he? He was trying to rip him backwards. Great smother, Rosie. Their intensity was so high against the West Coast in their last trial in Perth. They, in the pre-season comp, Port Adelaide smashing of the West Coast or North.
Kind of like a real quintessential Wilson Gray kind of moment, but I thought, we didn't get a whole lot in the day, but he had a nice one. Shout out to Logan Evans, had a nice spoil at one point that he closed space for. I can't remember when it was. It might have been the late second or early third, but he had a few nice moments like that. And Lockie Jones touching what everyone thought was a goal in the third quarter was, and in a moment where the game was kind of already lost, it felt like at that point, still putting his kind of putting the work in there. So, it was a few moments there, but very, 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 very glad that a moment that was in my short list, you got in there. And then, a Connor Rosie smother, captain doing some captain things is good stuff to see in what was an otherwise, pretty average day out. So, let's get to the goal of the week on this one.
Monfries has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint. Stevie Modler. What a time. Oh! He is floating on air now.
Man, I forgot how loud that sting was and my eardrums just got blown out. I do usually adjust my dial a little bit, but I hadn't played that sting for a while. But yes, goal of the week. Floating on air, not too much floating on air in this one, but I get to go first on this one. And I actually did have two genuine ones that I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to go with the obvious one. Bergman from the square.
Good chance here for Port Adelaide.
Ben Jones gets a 50-metre
Got to be 50
penalty
metres.
and
Sullivan standing.
here's it to Bergman. Winds up and bombs it all the way home. Massive goal.
And then Bergman inside the centre square. Thank you very much. Give me meters on that, mate. What do you reckon?
That's got to be pushing 63.
Wait, further?
Or further?
Yeah. Chuck that one on bounce later on and put the measuring stick on it.
60. Well, the commentators were discussing it. It even got talk about if they're going to Cam Mooney, I think said they'll put it through the bounce.
Get the lab.
The bounce test. Yeah, in the lab. So, Bergman genuinely going from inside the square at Marvel for what was, I think they said 63, 64 meters. Didn't even, it cleared the line by a solid foot. There wasn't even any need for much replay on it. I think it was a really, really, we know Bergman can long bomb it, but that one was exceptional. So, in the second quarter there, still when the game was somewhat in the balance there. So, a very, very important goal. But, Bergman going yard, just going fucking distance is, good stuff in an otherwise, as we discussed, indifferent game and confusing game for what we think Bergman will be. But he certainly showed some highlights still and what he can provide, even if it is with only 12 disposals.
Yeah, good shout. The very obvious one. And just, I don't know if you saw it, but the Port Adelaide social media team put up their questions to the AFLW players. And I'm sure one of them said that they predicted someone was going to kick a goal from the centre square. And I don't know if I'm fabricating this, but did they say that Miles Bergman was their prediction? Or was it someone else?
I'm trying to think of the post I saw, but one of the W players did post something about they predicted this or something like that. I think it could be in the comments of the goal itself.
Yeah, I thought I saw one of them say that. I can't remember who it was, but anyway, yeah, look, hiding to nothing with the second option, I think. Set shots and things like there's some good build-ups. I think that's why I wrote Jack Whitlock's goal in the second quarter was a good build-up, I think. Fairly straightforward shot in the end. But I'm just going to go with DBJ's snap to open our account for 2026 in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
A bit of chaos, bit of entertainment, and a snap to get DBJ underway.
Down line to a one-on-one. Logue with the fist. Drew is waiting at ground level for the power. Hands it off to Richards. Burn-Jones, the first shot on goal for the power. It's bouncing towards goal and it rolls home.
Yeah, but from a Port Adelaide point of view, they look a little bit more damaging at the moment, and you just got to make stuff up sometimes, Moons. And that there from Darcy Burn-Jones, quick hand to foot. Joe Richards gets involved, and importantly, away from home to get that first.
Yeah, that was actually the other one I wanted to talk about. So I'm glad, again, Nuffy minds on the same page. I like the build up to it too. There was a nice kick in and a little bit of, I think it was Joe Richards on the handball, like just some nifty work. Involved in the lead up to that one, and then obviously DBJ doing DBJ things, which is nice. Probably annoying that he didn't get too much more opportunity for that in the game. No fault of his own. He was just doing a lot of work on the forward defensive pressure stuff. But it was a very, very nice finish. Good stuff from DBJ there. I think it's a decent pair of goal of the week contenders out of what was an otherwise average game. And a reminder to those listening, and particularly for those new ones listening, the Wilson Gray that we've just done and the goal of the week, we will post them. I will post them in the Instagram stories early Wednesday evening. It's around Wednesday evening. I like to get them posted in the evening. So we're recording this on Tuesday, late Tuesday the 17th. Wednesday the 18th, they'll be posted on Instagram and obviously be available there for 24 hours from there in the stories. You vote for your choice. Those choices go into the mixer for our final award at the end of the year for the Wilson Gray and the Goal of the Year award. So each weekly nomination for both go into the mixer for the end of year award as to what we select as the best of all the moments from each week. So get around the Instagram. Again, if you don't follow us on Instagram, just search _ the Creed on Instagram and look for our logo and obviously a lot of teal content, and you'll have found the right place. And from there in the stories, the day after the podcast drops or the day of the podcast dropping, you can vote in the stories for our moments and see which one gets through for the end of year award.
And if you see Scott Stapp, you've gone to another Creed portion of Instagram.
Though we're supportive of that as well. Can you take me? All right, let's get to the player of the year voting.
Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting.
At some point, I get off my ass and re-record that so I don't have to hear my voice cracking every time. But that hasn't happened this week and probably won't happen this year because now it's just it's set for 2026. Player of the Year voting. As we've mentioned, so for all new listeners again, Jamie and I do not discuss our Player of the Year votes before we go into this. We rotate who goes first in each category each week, and Jamie obviously gets to go first this week for our first game of the year. In his Player of the Year votes, we go through a 1 through 5 rating, obviously 1 being our 5th best on ground and the 5 votes getting best on ground, and we tally them up for our Player of the Year award for the podcast at the end of the year. Jamie gets to go first, starting with his 1 vote. Carry away.
Take it away. Look, yeah. A lot of people having okay games. So, yeah, these votes. I mean, the one could go to just about anyone you want to give an honourable mention to, but I've actually gone Joe Richards, which may surprise a few people, but the 14 disposals on the day, 2 of which were intercepts. He's obviously playing that high forward position. 11 kicks going at 78%, 225 metres gain, 6 marks. He had the 2 goal assists. So in a game where he didn't get on the scoreboard himself, he had 2 direct goal assists. So just as good in his 6 score involvements as a total. 5 inside 50s, which goes to show his high half-forward role, and 13 pressure acts. Bit of a unsung hero, to embellish a little bit on his game. But outside of kicking goals himself, he did probably all that the coaches would have asked for. So that's why he got my 1 vote. 2 votes, maybe should have got him the 3, but I've gone with Mitch Georgiadis. He did what he could on the day. He kicked 3 goals, 1 from his 8 disposals. He had another couple score involvements outside of his scores. So, the lack of supply severely costed him what may have been a 5 or 6 goal game himself, but he did what he could with the opportunities he was presented with. Drew, I've given the 3 votes, 21 disposals, 9 contested, 3 intercepts, 380 metres gained, 4 clearances, 7 inside 50s, which you mentioned earlier, 15 pressure acts. Went at the 61% disposal efficiency, though, so that's probably just a knock on him. And again, we're picking out of some okay at best games for a lot of these players for votes this week. But yeah, everyone's got opportunities for improvement, and that's probably his. My 4 votes goes to Zach Butters. Notably, he's the highest champion data rated player on the field. But again, similarly to the Dante Vicentini chat, the eye test would probably tell you a bit different. The weird and wonderful rating that is champion data rating. Who knows what the herbs and spices are for that. But yeah, I just felt he started really well. But his second half kind of brought him back in the votes for mine. 23 disposals. He did get the 11 contested possessions, 289 metres gained, 9 clearances, 5 inside 50s, 19 pressure acts. So up there with that. 7 tackles as well. So a couple of true Zach Butters things, but yeah, we want a bit more from him. What was it? 1 disposal in the third quarter for a large portion of that third quarter. We just really needed him to fire hard tag or otherwise after halftime.
Yep.
And my best on ground is Connor Rosie. I thought he had the most well-rounded game out of those 3 midfielders. 24 disposals, 8 contested, 5 intercepts himself at 75% disposal efficiency. Just over 440 metres gained, 7 marks. All 3 of them had 4 score involvements. He had 4 inside 50s and 3 rebounds, which just goes to show kind of his effort up and down the ground, and 17 pressure acts himself, which goes along with a comment that you made about him putting on a bit more defensive pressure than what some people pay him credit for. So those are my votes for this week.
I like him. Your top 3, so Drew at 3, Butters at 4, and Rosie at 5, are identical to mine. It is in the 1 and 2 spots that we differ this week. I absolutely don't mind Richards and George at all, but in my 1 spot, I have, and sometimes, and for listeners, I have metrics for my votes that change every week based on how the wind blows. But I put Logan Evans in my 1 spot. I thought we saw a bit closer to the Logan Evans that we fell in love with in 2024. Applying himself around the ground, looking confident. He had the 16 disposals at 68.8%. So not a great disposal efficiency, but the team went at 70. So, he's getting close to that mark. He had 3 marks. He had 7 rebound 50s, which led the side. He had the 5 1%ers, which were noticeable at times, and he had the 5 score involvements as well. So he kind of tucked into a few stats there. And overall, obviously not a game that anyone had great games in. But so I just wanted to highlight Logan Evans in the votes there because I just thought he had a reasonable game considering kind of like his place going into this year outside of coming out of last year was a really intriguing one in the side this year. And I think he did himself no harm in kind of maybe pushing his case to be more regular out with this game. I think
it's always good to be regular.
Yeah, and one of the few that his intensity and application on the day felt pretty good. Seeing Jamie smiling. Fiber's good. I really enjoyed Logan Evans' game, and I want to see better out of him as well from outside going forward. Like I think he can go to further areas, but he was a good start to the year for a player that is kind of trying to find his way back into the side after looking like he'd be a lock after 2024. In my 2 spot, I actually put Jace Burgoyne in there. He had 17 disposals at 94%, which is exceptional stuff. Obviously, like to see him get up towards 20-odd, but I think he, again, a player that hadn't, at times last year, really in different games, he looked closer to the Jace Burgoyne we want to see in this game, despite the fact the game was, a little bit average. 94% disposal efficiency on a day that a lot of players were struggling to get even close to those numbers, particularly the fact he's one of the upper disposal winners was really, really good. He had the 5 marks, 3 tackles, 6 score involvements. He had 3 intercepts and 3 1%ers. Just 2 players in my 1 and 2 spots that I thought played reasonable games, considering their status in the side. There's probably a few guys like George. I thought about putting in there, but he gave away 250s. One of them I think was rough. I think we agree on that one. I think the other one was a little bit over the top. I can't remember who it was, but he just hammered into the back of him after he'd clearly taken it. I was just like, oh, God, George.
Yeah, because he, I forgot it for a second, because the kick was 10 meters. Sorry, he didn't play to the whistle. So on both accounts, he probably feels he's hard done by, but you do play to the whistle, don't you?
Yeah, and it was
no matter how
just a little bit
short.
overzealous. Yeah. It was just like there was a little bit of frustration. And I could understand the frustration, but I just would have liked it. I think there was probably 1 mark I think he dropped maybe at one point, and like I'm grading him harshly. I would have liked to see. I think the 3 goals is a sign of how well he can take opportunity from limited opportunity, and also shows that just how much further he can go. He was in my shortlist, like honorables. I had Todd and Todd Marshall in my honorable mentions actually, because I thought about like if Todd had played a full game maybe, and I thought he actually played a really good game, but so he's in my honorables, as was George, but and I like that you got Joe Richards in there as well.
Flew under the radar for sure, and that's probably why I didn't talk about him in our forward line breakdown. But yeah, when you look at the stats, in terms of what the coaches would be asking from him,
we love Joe
probably
Richards.
done.
As does
It would have been nice to get 2 goals and 2 goal assists. What was that?
Yeah, I said as does Jake Corns. I was just a callback to
not Eddie, friend of the pod.
Shout out to Eddie as well, but I think Eddie Corn, famous Joe Richards fan.
Great. Yeah, I also had McKinlay as an honourable mention. I saw it for his second game of AFL football. Again, he did as best as he could, mainly playing on a wing. I know that he had 8 grab ball gets, was best for Port as well, which is a pretty key stat in terms of the contest. Just on Burgoyne before we wrap up, great disposal efficiency. You mentioned wanting him to get up to the 20s. I want to see him getting up to the 25s, to be personally. But in 2024, a few of those breakout games, and he set a high bar for himself. I want him to get back to that. And the other thing was, new listeners of the pod, Dave will probably bring up several times this year Jace Burgoyne's tackling technique, which there was another instance of that, of how good it is, might I add, in this game where I think a North player received a high ball, and Jace kind of just wrapped him up, but swung the legs around and sat him down. And even the commentary made note of the fact that instead of cannoning into his back, which can happen when a player grabs the high ball from a hand pass or whatnot, he wrapped himself around and just sat him down, which was just resulted in a ball up. I thought that was noteworthy again, that Jace Burgoyne's tackling technique is getting discussed by the commentary team as well, which you definitely key in on a lot, particularly in the Wilson Gray stakes.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm hopefully actually be a few instances this year again. I think his tackling technique is like the new way, like is exactly why you can actually, there's a way forward for this game. That's an entire different discussion, but people talking about AFL and what it is, but you've got young players coming in who have learnt to tackle in a way that can be utilized in the modern game regularly.
Saves himself from trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Saves because we haven't seen Jace Burgoyne in these stupid tribunal discussions about good bloke pauses and all sorts.
Or even
of things
avoids free kicks against as well, to just focus on the game situation.
Yeah.
Have I opened Pandora's box? We were just wrapping up.
Yeah, no, we need to. Jamie, we've hit an hour and a half, so we want to wrap up. So Jamie, do not get me talking about Jace Burgoyne and tackling techniques. Yeah, no, let's wrap up for the night. Obviously, we're going to do a squad show later in the week, so there's no obviously preview stuff here, but just a note that we are playing Essendon at Adelaide Oval on Sunday afternoon. I think it's 2:45. I don't know.
Tis.
Yes. So get around it. Messages if you want to catch up for a beer.
Reply at Aunt Helga.
I'm really, really looking forward to getting down there. It's looking like I had a look at the weather earlier, and as far as what a 5-day out forecast can tell you, it's looking like it might be a nice day down there as well. Warm is what I'm seeing as well. So
autumn
classic
football,
March footy stuff. So it'll be interesting. Certainly very, very different conditions to what they dealt with at Marvel, and of course on home deck. So hopefully a far improved performance. But we'll obviously preview that later in the week when we get to the squad show and see what the squads are shaping up at. So, Jamie, any final, what are your thoughts for today, or just happy to fucking put this one in the past?
Season's up and running. Yeah, bury that round one performance and learn every single fucking thing you can from it, and atone on Sunday.
Absolutely, yeah. Opportunity presents to atone in it against it. Again, not wanting to, underappreciate the opposition, but opportunity does present to atone for the round one loss. And certainly the main thing I want to remind people of, not that most good Port fans out there will need reminders of, but this is the first game in the Josh Carr era. There is a lot of things that need to change coming out of the previous era going into this one. We are in a bit of a rebuild, so things, progress isn't linear, and we certainly got a harsh reminder of that on last Sunday, but hopefully this Sunday brings some atonement and some advancement already. But there's a journey ahead of us, but good times will come out of that if we are patient. And just glad to be back here talking about Port footy, regardless of whether we're in misery and Jamie's therapy skills are required again. So thank you for joining us. Really, really appreciate you, whether you're returning, new listeners, whatever it may be. Thank you for joining us on this episode, and there'll be plenty more coming soon. Can the fucking pair.
Go the pair.